Okay, then. Today we are finally getting to look at all the data that we've been trying to collect over these past several weeks. Of course, getting the data is why we've been doing all of this to begin with. I just have a basic survey that Qualtrics makes for you, and I ran some uh, test data, from the generate test responses. And so then you come over here to data and analysis. Um, and when you're doing this and you generate test responses, it might take a couple or even a few minutes for this data to actually show up. You'll see over here that, there's a thing that's spinning. I did some of these things prior just so we don't have to sit around and wait. Um, and we've looked at this data a little bit before, but we'll look at all of this in much more detail now. Um, so here is your basic data table. It has, by default, it will start with the recorded date and your first several questions in your survey. You can decide which columns you want to see or don't want to see. So start date, end date, response type. Um, I'm going to add in response type because that can be useful, and I'll have to move it over. Um, but you can choose whatever data is in there, whatever it's has been collected. You can add into the data table. You can also move the columns around. And once you've done all of that, not there, you can save the layout. And you can have a couple of different layouts. You could have a few, depending on what you need or want to do in terms of looking at your data here in the data table. And you see here, I added response type. This is an automatic variable that Qualtrics adds in. And you can see that since it's all been generated by the survey test, it says survey test. Uh, if the record was generated by when you click on the preview button as you're testing, it'll say survey preview. Otherwise, it will say IP address. And there are a few other, I guess, values that can be in there depending on what Qualtrics thinks is going on. But this can be useful, especially if you forget to delete all your survey test data before you actually distribute your survey. You'll know which ones you can delete later on. It makes it a lot easier. You can filter your data, and we've seen these kinds of, all of the following are true, select. We've seen this kind of thing. And this only filters the view. It's not certainly not deleting any of your data. Um, you have to really, really want to delete data. That's one nice thing about Qualtrics is you can't do it really by mistake. Um, and the filter can be useful too if you're looking for a specific record. If you know somebody's, say, email address and you need to look at their specific record and you have, 300 or 400, it can be kind of a pain in the neck to find it. So the filter is good for searching for specific things. You can click on the cell and change a specific, one specific answer. Um, You can come over here and you can view the entire response. Now, if this were a real response, there would be more information down here, such as their IP address and latitude and longitude, maybe a couple of other things. But of course, this is a test, so there's nothing there. You can delete the response. You can export it to a PDF if you like. These retake response, sometimes with a survey, or if you're collecting data, say for people are applying to a program, or just say applying for travel funds, and they need to change their answer or a couple of answers, you do retake response, and then you can copy this URL and send it to them, and then they can take their response. I'm going to click on it so you can see it's their response, and everything that they filled out before is there, and then they can just go and change whatever they need to and resubmit. And so retake response replaces the values in this record. Retake as a new response starts with this record, but then when the person submits it, it adds a new record, an additional record. It won't delete the original, but there'll be another one. And you can click over here and you see a couple more things show up. You can edit the response, do a specific variable that's not necessarily shown in your data table here. You can revert it back to what it was originally, and you can delete it. And so, as I say, you have to really want to. You got to click both of these, I am sure, and then you have to delete. And of course, you can do that to several at a time. So if you have a bunch of survey tests, say a dozen of them, you can click each of them and then delete them. This field editor, you may not use very much, if at all. You can create new fields with it, and different methods of creating new variables. Unless you want to use that information in like an online dashboard or a report that goes out automatically, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes, you're better off creating new fields in either Excel or SPSS or something else. That way you really have a record of what you did, how you created that new variable. You don't necessarily get all of that in Qualtrics. This will show how many responses have been recorded officially and they're done, and anything that is still in progress. You can see there's a few here. I did this on purpose just so you can see. These are responses that have been started but not completed. And so you can see when it will expire, and the people won't be able to go back in and continue or even start if they haven't started yet. And, it tells you last recorded that the um, the survey is still active. This response quality, if you click on that, we've seen this expert review kind of thing when we were still developing the survey. And since these are test data, they were created perfectly. Um, there's not going to be any straight lining, people just checking off right down the list. Ambiguous text is, people maybe just typing something in just to type something in. Uh, and with real data, you'll get more kinds of fields in here. Um, and again, just like the expert review, when you're developing the survey, these are suggestions, things for you to look at yourself. Again, Qualtrics won't delete any data unless, as I just showed you, you really, really want to. Thing is, to get this response quality button in the first place, in the actual survey, you have to come over to survey options and then security. And you have to have prevent multiple submissions, bot detection, security scan, and relevant ID all turned on to even get that button. It used to be that button was there even if you didn't turn all this stuff on. And it would say, oh, you'll get more information if you turn this stuff on. But now you don't even get it unless you do. Going through export and import. This you will probably be using. And I think we looked quickly at export data. Um, always click on more options. Um, you can do a CSV, a TSV, Excel, XML, SPSS, Google Drive, and excuse me, user submitted files. Um, download all fields. Yeah, you're always going to want to download all the fields. Um, export values is, or export labels, your choice there is whether it downloads Hispanic or it downloads the one that's behind this data. And that makes more of a difference with the CSV and TSV and Excel. As when you do SPSS, it will kind of do both. Um, you don't need to zip it unless it's a really huge file. Commas for decimals if it's a European. Remove line breaks could be useful if you have large essay type answers and people are hitting the return button to separate paragraphs. Sometimes that can kind of mess things up when you download the data. Recode seen but unanswered questions as -99. That's a question. That's simply a question that somebody didn't answer. They saw the question, but they didn't answer it. And you can even change you can say -9 or any value in here that you want. That's kind of a holdover, and sometimes it can be useful, but it's a holdover from the olden days when we still had computer punch cards and you had to punch something in that field. Otherwise, the computer would spit the whole thing out. Recode C, but unanswered multi-value fields. That's for check all that apply. By default, if the person checks the item, uh, Qualtrics will code a 1. And if they don't check it, then it's blank. Sometimes you need that coded as a 0 instead, or some other number. You can change it here too. Export viewing order. We talked about that when we did the randomization. Split multi-value fields into columns. You always want this checked. And this is also with the multi-value fields, the check all that apply. If this is not checked, then say you have, 10 items and a check all that apply. Everything that the person checks or doesn't check will be jammed into one column, one variable. And that's not particularly useful. You want them each split into their own columns. Use internal IDs in header. When you download the Excel or the CSV, it will use the ID of the question. Qualtrics applies an ID to like absolutely everything you do. And so you'll see this weird kind of code instead of the variable name. That might be useful if you're doing some back-end programming, but for normal people, it's not useful. Exclude survey response edits. You don't want to have that included. And include download links for user uploaded files. If you're allowing people to upload a file, say, a spreadsheet or an multi-page essay or something, this will include a link in the data to where that file is residing on the Qualtrics servers, so that you can just click on it and get that particular file for that person. These are all pretty much the same. Excel, SPSS, these are the ones you'll use most of the time. String width, if you do have long open-ended questions, you might want to increase this to make sure that the person's answer doesn't get cut off. And really all the same kinds of similar options here. You can also download the SPSS syntax file program to read the data and the corresponding text or data. And so this syntax file will read this data. That can be useful if you're have to send the data and the syntax to another person someplace, or if you are required to publish your data at some time, you're doing a grant and they want you to publish your data. You want to publish the text data, not the SPSS.save file. You can also have the data sent to a Google Drive file, Google Sheet. Um, that can be useful if you want to use the data in something like Tableau, which can read directly from the Google Drive. So you have the data go to the Google Drive and then use Tableau to do that. Um, there are other interesting things you can do using Google Sheets. And I have, on my Qualtrics page, um, there's a couple of videos on how to do that. And then the user submitted files. You can download all of those files all together in is one zip file and download everything all at once. Are there any questions? Okay. Um, you see a few other things here. Text IQ. This is Qualtrics. I'm not going to say update because that could take a while and mess things up. Text IQ is Qualtrics' version of doing qualitative research. Um, and you have to prepare your open-ended questions to go into this. There's a lot to do before you get even to this point, and then even more. If you want to do actual qualitative analysis on the person's responses, I strongly, strongly suggest downloading the data and putting it into something like NVivo or Atlas TI or any number of other qualitative data packages. Um, Qualtrics, it's kind of rudimentary in that sense. Um, okay, why it's not going to let me out of this unless I do click update? No, no, there we go. All right, yay. Again, this is from crosstabs updates, and I'm going to skip this. This makes simple crosstabs. You can drag and drop things. And it makes a nice little crosstab, and you can decide what information you want in the table. This is good for a quick look at your data. This is not a publishable table. Say for a journal or to put into your thesis or dissertation or whatever. But it's okay for looking at stuff. It can also do some weighting, and I strongly recommend, again, if you need to do weighting with your data, unless you really know what you're doing, find a statistician to help you do it. And they will likely want to do it in SPSS or Stata or SAS rather than in Qualtrics, because Qualtrics it can do some weighting, but not a lot. Any questions? So we'll take a look back at the data table. The results tab, again, this is good for just taking a quick look at your data. Qualtrics will kind of decide what type of graphic to show based on the data, based on the question and what's in there. And you can change these, you can edit them. Come over here to edit. And you can decide what kind of bars. And what questions and comparisons and things. Again, as I say, this is good for taking a quick look at your data. This is also good for creating a dashboard that other people can look at without having to actually give them access into the Qualtrics project. As if you come over here, you have the dashboard appearance, what kind of colors and things that you want. And this applies to the entire report. Then you can come here to manage public dashboards. And anyone can view this dashboard at the following link. I'm going to copy that. You can come right in here. And you can see the dashboard, but you can't really edit anything. See, it just lets you view the data. There's none of the other edit buttons. So you can send this link to anybody who wants to look at this, and you don't have to make them a collaborator on your project, and they can't get in and mess around with the actual data. They can only look at this. Then there's also this workflows, which is kind of new. And you can send an email once a week if there's new responses since the last week. It will send an email with the link so that you can look at it. That public dashboard, that gets updated automatically as new responses come in. People looking at it might need to refresh the page, but once they do that, all the new responses will be automatically added, and you don't need to go in and regenerate that report every time. And of course, you can export. You can either just download it or email it. And then reports. This is basically the same thing, but as you can see, this is good for if you want to produce a printed report or something that would look good, say in a PDF file. You can add and edit them. You see all the edit stuff over here and styles, and I'm not going to go through everything. So this one is good if you want to, as I say, produce a printed report. And you can do the same thing, a printed, copy this link. and people can see the report. And then they can download it as a PDF. Oh, with this and with the dashboards, you can put a password in it, um, but everybody gets the same password. So it's better, I suppose, better than no password. Um, but if you have different things that different people need to see, it might not be the best way. And you can download it directly and view the public report and the settings again. And of course, it looks a little same kinds of things, looks a little bit different for um, obvious reasons. And of course, you can do a filter on it. All the other types of things you can do. And of course, you can use different names, create different reports for different people and give them access. Each version of the report will get its own link in the public report, so you can send the correct link to each person. Are there any questions? Just looking at my notes here to make sure. I think we got through everything. Yeah. Okay. Any questions about anything we've done today? About anything we've done in the past? Okay, then. That's all, folks. Thank you all very much for sticking it out over these last several weeks. Um, and of course, in the future, if you have any questions, need help, you are more than welcome to contact me and we can figure things out and get together and we'll get you going.